100 duelists step up for purely to take home the golden championship. Alright, for the 34% of you that have not smashed the living crap out of that subscribe button, smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. Alright, so we are going to be looking at the breakdown for the Ram Championship here. Now, let me tell you this. For 100 duelists, this is a pretty interesting top 16 that you're going to see here. So we had 6 tier elements duelists. So it's a little bit about almost a majority of your top cut. We're getting there. I like to see that even though like this is the best deck, like all of your rogue is competing in this category, which is very, very interesting. Now, I lumped up our Bysteel Synchro decks into the same category here because it depends on like your flavor of how you want to play the deck. Some will play punk, some will, you know, not play punk. And when we go through the list here, you'll kind of see those differences in those card choices to kind of show what we're doing here. And then we get into the one of categories here. So purely won the event, no surprise there. Flaunderies got second. You're like, how, Robbie? Like, what's going on here? Like, well, I mean, through such a big top cut, it does show that a lot of potential was had here. We also had Labyrinth, which Labyrinth still continues to be very much a fan favorite deck out here. We also have Drytron, which I don't know how a Drytron player managed to make top 16 an event with Bysteels just looking around every which way, going, yeah, like, I don't get that. We also had a Manadome deck. Finally, we get the chance to see that. We also had a Gishki Sprite deck in Top Cut, which is kind of nice. And then on the same topic of Sprite, we also had Tri-Brigade Sprite. I kind of separated those because their Sprite package is a little bit more discombobulated than ours is. And then we also had Runic making its way into the Top Cut. So a lot of those top choices that you really love to see here did perform for this event, which is really, really nice, actually. So a lot of diversity, but we're going to pass on over so you can kind of get an idea of how these deck lists are starting to shape up. All right, winning our event here was none other than Purely, which I'll clap. Now, keep in mind that it looks like a lot of these builds have reduced the number of the White Kitten down to 2, which is kind of nice. We're playing 2 of the Trap card, which kind of seems to have evolved into a little bit more of the norm as well. I also like the fact that that link to for the moon actually started to see some play here. I don't have a lot of other words to say for this, but this deck has become a lot more tacked out to handle a lot of the menaces out here. Alright, second place, none other than our dear old friend Flaunderies. Yeah, so no Stormwinds needed. You just Regeki, Dark Roller, no more, Dimensional Fit. Do all the good standard stuff that you need to do. Also, the extra deck is kind of cool. The amount of Charmers that we're playing here is definitely well thought out, I feel like. So it's nice to see that this deck is still managing to do things, even with the loss of Barrier Statue of Stormwinds, especially for a higher competitive level event. All right, next up here we have what is our first Synchro Bysteel deck. This is basically where you're going to take advantage of the Apple Dragon. I know, this thing makes a tuner monster, which is hilarious. And it gives you access to Chaos Ruler, and then, of course, you're just going to start doing excavation points, start comboing up. I'm glad that we don't get the ability to abuse this deck, or actually even have to see this deck in the near future here, because with the loss of Chaos Ruler, we won't have to deal with this incarnation. So, but this deck is scary as crap. And then we have our first tier elements deck. Now, the OCG is still playing Fairy Tale Snow with this. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't play one of the best cards that you have access to in your deck. Like, that card is the nutsaroo. I see that we're also playing standard King of the Swamp stuff. We're still playing our Shizu package for regeneration. I don't know why you wouldn't touch the Shizu package with a 10-foot pull in this deck and expect to be successful. It's definitely mandatory staple in the OCG right now. So good stuff. Next up here, another tier elements deck. Alright, so this one gutted out the Fenrir and the Unicorn. They're like, you know, we don't really need to worry about that. It is kind of nice to have those cards. Still playing the Foolish Burial Goods. That's kind of cool. Still generate some advantage. And as you see, because we are playing King of the Swamp, you still are getting access to, you know, all of your pretty generic fusion cards. I mean, shout out to the Dark World Fusion monster for just being a massive kick-butt monster to punish the opponent. So, good stuff. Alright, next up here is another tier deck. Wow, we're just knocking out all these tier decks very early on. This one is main decking 1 Fenrir, which is fine. I see that we're still you have zero reason not to play Parios in the combination hybrid build. Like, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not actually playing Parios in this deck, because getting a free search for the Kashtira to your Elements monster to do some additional mill power is very criminally underrated if you're not actually trying to do that. So yeah, stick around for that. Alright, next up here is our second Bysteel Synchro deck. Now you see here you're going to use the Punk package to kind of do the exact same thing that you were attempting to do with the little Apple Dragon stuff. But like I said, your big key points here is just get to the Chaos Ruler, start shuffling through the higher scale monsters, and then blow your opponent out. It's not really fun, to be honest with you, but it definitely gets the job done in terms of your power scaling ceiling for this. So definitely cool. And then we have our Labyrinth deck. Oh man, I love seeing Labyrinth out here. Now this build is playing Karma Cut. I've seen this in Phoenix Wing Blast starting to show up out here, is like little option tree cards that can kind of disrupt the opponent and kind of put you back into a good position. Also, I mean, your normal trap card interactions with this deck are usually pretty good, all things considering out here. So no real major things. Also, End of Anubis out here is still doing its job. Alright, next up, our next tier Elements deck. Yay! This feels a little bit more streamlined than I'm used to seeing. We're on 1-1 in the Bysteals. That's interesting. Still playing the double Foolish Burial Goods. The value you're getting from Foolish Burial Goods with a lot of these lists is actually pretty insane. I'm starting to understand why they're dedicating all of these slots to actually seeing it. And then the reason why it was semi-limited, it was a consistency hit on the cutback for this deck. So good stuff to see, you know, power reduction and so forth. Alright, next up, another tier Elements deck. Oh boy, my favorite, double Foolish Burial Goods again. We're still doing King of the Swamp shenanigans, which is fine. I see that we are still doing the Chaos Goddess as well down here. And maximizing the Ishizu package. Once again, if you're not maximizing your Ishizu package, I feel like you're just going to get blown out. I see we're also side decking Heartbeat down here as well. So you got a lot of good options going for you here for this deck. Alright, as we continue on through top 16, here's our Drytron deck. They still have Ava at 1. It's actually hilarious. The fact that Ava is still at 1 in the OCG and it's not even really doing anything is hilarious. We're citing the Divine Karates as well down here. So my biggest concerns are I'm surprised that this is getting the chance to even peek through the cracks with the amount of Bysteals that actually exist in the OCG. But nonetheless, it is a very nice, fresh, you know, breath of air to see that this is working still. Next up here is our Manadome deck. Now, Manadome Hero actually is a kind of a cool concept. I've started to see this show up a wee little bit more here because getting the ability to, you know, do fusion shenanigans through Prisma. Yeah, Elemental Hero Prisma actually showing up for the first time in years out here through a Hero Lives, giving you the chance to get some pretty major dumps going for this deck so that you can make the big fusion monster. Yeah, pretty cool at the end of the day. Next up here is our Gishki Sprite deck. So basically, for those of you that are looking forward to playing this deck here in the near future, you're going to get an idea of what the ratios are. We're also citing the triple trap card to rip from the opponent's hand. You don't tend to see a lot of those anymore. Iria still is a good trap card, but most people just don't even really bother with it. So you're rolling on 2 of the Gishki spell cards as well for Ritual Summon. And I guess you don't really need to dedicate too much craziness to that. And then we also have our Runic deck here. We're playing Graveyard of the Super Ancient Organisms. Wow. Now, the cool thing about this list is, you see, we are playing the trap card down there, the Synchro Zone, that neither player can declare attacks unless with Synchro Monsters. It's a discount messenger piece at the end of the day. Outside of that, the rest of what this deck intends to do is pretty standard, I feel like, at the end of the day. So, good stuff. Alright, next up here we have our Sprite Tri-Brigade deck. Oh boy, we really are out here with this reduced engine and still finding ways to actually make this work. I think that's the most impressive thing at the end of the day here is, even with such a destroyed package, that this deck is still able to get off the ground. They still have tanky and reduced numbers, still playing the Ninja Mosquito. I don't see anything really too shocking about this list. This is very reminiscent of your modern era TCG decks. And then, of course, we have the last deck that I kind of chalked up into the tier pile here. You're going to be using basically Albaz Good Stuff Fusion. Grass looks greener to filter through your deck, and then kind of start the massive generation engine that this deck really wants to kind of start toggling through for. So, Albaz Good Stuff, effectively. So, 100 players, that's your breakdown. I'm actually quite impressed with this. So please, leave a comment down below what you guys think. And I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.